The background eraser is a very useful tool in Photoshop, and we can use it, for example, to take out the dull sky behind the Houses of Parliament here in London and replace it with a more interesting sky. So first we'll double click the background in the Layers panel to turn it into a regular layer. And now before we start using the tool, let's open up the History panel and click next to that stage Make Layer to pin that as our history. We can put the History panel away now. We're not going to need to look at it again. So we go for the background eraser tool and we'll find it nested beneath the regular eraser tool, and it's the second one down. There are several options for how to set this. We could set it to sample continuously, but that's a rather difficult way of doing it because it's always picking up the colour beneath the cursor, and if we stray over a bit of foreground object, it's going to cause us difficult times. So let's choose the second option, which is just to sample once. We can set the limits to contiguous, and what this will do will mean it can't stray over any unwanted edges. I'll show you that in a moment. And we'll say protect the foreground colour. So we can sample the foreground colour, say this black out of the tree there, and we can start to use the tool, and as we click in it, all that sky is disappearing. But you notice it's not going inside these bounded areas, and that's because the limits are set to contiguous. If we change it to discontiguous, then it will go all through the image, even inside bounded shapes. And we can lose the tool to take out all of this background. Now that's colour that we chose for the foreground colour we sampled here is the one that it's not erasing. When we get closer to the building, we want to sample a new colour. So let's hold the Alt key down and we can sample the colour on the side of the building there. And as we go around it, that colour will now not be erased. As we get further down the building, we might want to sample more colours out of this to make sure those colours are not removed. And we can carry on painting all the way down, sampling colours if we need to as we go, until all of this sky is taken out. Like that. And I'll just get rid of this white background that I made on the edge of our image area. Now that looks pretty good so far, but we can't really tell how it looks until we add a new background in here. So let's try putting in a purple background. I like going for a strong colour because that shows us clearly the difference between the original, between what's still remaining to be erased and what we've actually taken out. And we can see here we've missed a few bits. So we can simply go back over those to take out those colours that we don't want. Now at this point, take out a bit more of the sky from underneath here. We might look at this image and we might think, oh, hang on a minute, there's a bit of a problem because we've taken out the clock face and indeed half of Big Ben there. Should we go back and start again? Well, in fact, we don't need to do that because of the history panel. If we choose the history brush, and we can set this to a hard-edged brush, when we open the history panel again, we can see all of these background eraser steps that we made in there. But we pinned it at the top when we first turned that background into a new layer. What that means is when we use the history brush, it's going to paint the document in the state it was at the point where we pinned it, right back there. And that means we can simply paint over the clock face and in fact all the way down the side of this building to return it to the state it was before we erased it. And the same goes for the bottom of the building here, where the brush was a little over enthusiastic and took out some of this foreground. So rather than having to keep on sampling new foreground colours and hope that we've got it right and then find that we've made mistakes, well, we can simply use this history brush, providing we've pinned it, and paint back from there. Well, you might say, why didn't we pin it right at the beginning? The reason being that when we opened the document, the Houses of Parliament was the background layer. And if we'd pinned it at that point, we wouldn't then be able to copy from that layer because that background layer would no longer exist. So we make it into a regular layer first, and now we can clone from it. Now, we can see that there's a little bit of mess going on up in the trees here. Let's put the history panel away. When we zoom in, we can see that there's some colour fringing that came through when we were originally photographed this that we didn't get rid of at the time. Well, we can get rid of that now. And the easiest way is to lock the transparency of this layer, go for the brush tool and set the mode of this brush from normal to colour. And now it'll paint only in colour. And let's choose a softer brush. Now we can sample a colour out of the tree and paint it over the tree. With the transparency locked, it's not going to leak out, but it will get rid of all that fringing for us. So let's zoom out again. So now when we bring in a new background and move it behind our Houses of Parliament, we get a pretty good cutout. Easily achieved using the background eraser in conjunction with that history panel.